There's a specific type of silence that happens when your card gets declined at the grocery store. It only lasts about 3 seconds, but it feels like an hour. The cashier stops chewing her gum and looks at you with a mix of pity and annoyance. The people in line behind you pretend to look at their phones, trying to be polite, but you can feel their judgment burning into the back of your neck. You feel the heat rising in your cheeks. You mumble something about a bank error or fraud protection, knowing it's a lie. You start pulling items out of the bag, the luxuries like the good brand of cereal or the extra pack of meat, to lower the total. You try again. Your heart is hammering against your ribs so hard you think everyone can hear it. That moment isn't just embarrassing. It is trauma. It is your body telling you, on a primal biological level, that you are unsafe. It is the modern-day equivalent of being chased by a predator, only the predator is a number in a database. Just a quick reminder before we start. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor, so always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Most people think the cure for that anxiety, the difference between being broke and being wealthy, is millions of dollars. They watch movies about Wall Street or scroll through Instagram, seeing Lamborghinis and penthouses, and they think that is safety. They think you need a trust fund or a winning lottery ticket to finally exhale. But they are wrong. The most important financial milestone of your entire life isn't $1 million. It isn't even $100,000. It is the first $20,000. Today we are going to talk about the physics of money. Specifically, a concept I call financial escape velocity. When you are at zero or in debt, gravity is crushing you. The atmosphere is heavy. Every minor bump in the road, a parking ticket, a cavity, a leaky roof, keeps you pinned to the ground. You are constantly fighting just to stand up. But there is a mathematical tipping point where gravity releases its hold on you. That point is roughly $20,000 in liquid savings. Once you cross this line, the entire universe of money changes. The wind stops blowing in your face and starts blowing at your back. Let's start with the cruelest paradox of capitalism, something the author Terry Pratchett famously called the Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. The theory is brutally simple. Being poor is incredibly expensive. Let's say you have zero savings. You are living paycheck to paycheck. You need work boots. You buy the cheap $50 pair because that is all the cash you have in your pocket. But because they are cheap cardboard and glue, they fall apart in 6 months. You have to buy another pair, and another. Over 10 years, you buy 20 pairs of boots. You spend $1,000 on boots. A rich man, or even just a prepared man, buys one $200 pair of high-quality leather boots that last a decade. The rich man spent $200. You spent $1,000. You paid an $800 tax just for being broke. This applies to almost every single vertical of your life, but the most dangerous one is your car. When you have no capital, you are a subprime borrower. You need a car to get to work, so you go to a buy here, pay here lot. You buy a car worth $5,000, but because your credit is shaky and you have no down payment, they hit you with a 24% interest rate. Over the life of that loan, you might pay $12,000 for a car that is barely worth $5,000. You are being robbed, legal and slow. Now, imagine you have $20,000 in the bank. You go to buy that same car. You write a check for $5,000. Done. You pay zero interest, or you buy a better car that doesn't break down, saving you thousands in repairs. Mathematically, when you have capital, your life becomes 20% to 30% cheaper than the life of the person standing next to you. This is the first reason you stop being broke. You simply stop bleeding money. You stop paying the poor tax. Let's look at a visceral example. Your teeth. When you are broke, you skip the $150 cleaning because you need that money for groceries. You ignore the slight pain in your molar. 2 years later, that ignored cavity becomes a root canal and a crown. Now the bill is $2,500. Being broke forced you to turn a $150 problem into a $2,500 emergency. Having $20,000 means you can afford maintenance. You can fix the roof before it leaks. You can change the oil before the engine seizes. You move from a reactive life, where you are always putting out fires, to a proactive life, where you prevent the fires from ever starting. But the financial math is only half the story. The other half, and I would argue the more important half, is biological. There is a concept in psychology called cognitive bandwidth. Think of your brain like a computer with a limited amount of RAM. When you are broke, your brain is constantly running a heavy background program called survival. You are subconsciously calculating the price of gas as you drive. You are worrying about rent while you play with your kids. You are stressed about that weird noise your car is making while you try to sleep. Studies from Princeton and Harvard show that this constant financial anxiety drops your functional IQ by up to 13 points. That is one standard deviation. That is the difference between average and gifted. When you are broke, you make bad decisions not because you are stupid, but because you are exhausted. You are suffering from decision fatigue. You order the expensive takeout because you don't have the mental energy to cook. You buy the lottery ticket because your brain is desperate for a dopamine hit of hope. When you hit $20,000, that background noise goes silent. The survival program turns off. Suddenly, you have your RAM back. You regain your bandwidth. You start looking at the horizon instead of your feet. You start planning for next year instead of next Friday. You start spotting opportunities you were literally too stressed to see before. You become a better employee, a better partner, and a better parent, simply because your mind isn't occupied by the fear of eviction. And this leads to the most powerful asset that $20,000 buys you: leverage. In negotiation theory, the person who needs the deal the least always wins. Employers can smell desperation. It has a scent. It smells like compliance. If you have $0 in the bank and your toxic boss tells you to work the weekend or he'll fire you, you have to say yes. You are a hostage. You have no leverage. You are negotiating from a position of weakness. You swallow your pride, you take the abuse, and you stay small. But if you have $20,000 in the bank, that is 6 months of freedom. If that same toxic boss threatens you, you can look him in the eye and say, no. You can negotiate for a raise because you are willing to walk away. You can leave a bad job to find a better one without the fear of starving. This is what we call FU money. It isn't millions, but it's enough to buy your dignity back. And ironically, the moment you are not afraid to lose your job is usually the moment you start getting promoted. Confidence is valuable. Desperation is cheap. There is another level to this, one that wealthy people know but rarely talk about. It's called asymmetric opportunity. When the world goes crazy, when the stock market crashes or housing prices dip or a pandemic hits, what do broke people do? They panic, they sell, they try to survive. They are forced to liquidate their assets at the worst possible time just to buy food. But what do people with $20,000 do? They go shopping. When you have cash reserves, a crisis becomes an opportunity. You can buy assets when they are on sale. Warren Buffett didn't get rich by buying stocks when they were expensive. He got rich by having a pile of cash ready when everyone else was selling. You cannot play this game if you are living paycheck to paycheck. You need a ticket to enter the casino. That ticket is your first $20,000. This is how the rich get richer. It isn't a conspiracy, it's liquidity. Now, let's look at the compound interest. This is where the math gets fun. Charlie Munger, the billionaire partner of Warren Buffett, famously said, "The first $100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. I don't care what you have to do. If it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that wasn't purchased with a coupon, find a way to get your hands on $100,000. I am scaling that down to $20,000 because that is the ignition point. When you have $500 saved, a 5% return is $25. It's a pizza. It feels negligible. It feels like a waste of time to invest. It's demoralizing, but at $20,000, a 7% return in the market is $1,400 a year. That is passive income. That is a free vacation. That is your money finally working as hard as you do. And here is the beautiful part. Money acts like a magnet. The first $20,000 is the hardest money you will ever accumulate. It feels like climbing a vertical wall of glass. You have to say no to nights out, you have to drive the clunker car, you have to eat rice and beans. It is a grind. But the second $20,000? That is easier. Because now you aren't paying late fees. You aren't paying interest. You have a clearer mind, and you have that $1,400 of investment returns pushing you forward. The snowball has started to roll. So, how do you do it? How do you cross this chasm? Because watching this video makes sense, but doing it is painful. You have to get angry. You have to get angry at the late fees, angry at the interest rates, angry at the vulnerability. You need to declare a temporary state of emergency in your life. I call it wartime budgeting. This isn't about skipping a latte once a week. That is peacetime budgeting. Wartime budgeting is ruthless. It means looking at the big three: housing, transportation, and food. Can you move into a smaller apartment for 2 years? Can you get a roommate? Can you sell the car that costs you $600 a month and drive a beater? You have to realize that this period of sacrifice is not forever. It is a season. You are buying your freedom. You are buying your sanity. Most people walk through life on a tightrope with no safety net. One slip, one layoff, one illness, and they fall into the abyss. Getting to $20,000 is weaving that safety net. It also requires a shift in identity. You have to stop caring what other people think. The broke person buys a new iPhone on a payment plan to look rich. The person building wealth keeps the cracked iPhone 11 because they know that $1,000 is better in their brokerage account than in Apple's pocket. You have to become immune to the status games that society plays. There's a concept called social capital that changes here too. When you are broke, you tend to hang out with other broke people. You commiserate about how hard life is. It's a support group for stagnation. But when you start saving, when you start talking about investing, you might lose some friends. And that is okay. You will start to attract people who are also building. You will start to have conversations about ideas and assets, not just about people and problems. Your network changes, and your network is your net worth. I want you to visualize your life as a business. When a business has no cash reserves, one bad month bankrupts it. It cannot take risks. It cannot innovate. It is fragile. A business with cash reserves is robust. It can survive a storm. It can invest in new equipment. You are that business. Getting to $20,000 transforms you from a fragile entity into a robust one. It changes your identity. You stop identifying as a poor person trying to survive and start identifying as an investor building a future. And I promise you this, the day you see that comma in your bank account, the day the balance reads $20,000, you will physically feel a weight lift off your shoulders that you didn't even know you were carrying. You will breathe differently. The clicking sound of a dead car battery will no longer sound like the end of the world. It will just sound like a problem to be solved. And that peace of mind? That is worth more than any luxury car you could ever buy. If this video helped you shift your perspective, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps the algorithm show this to someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to join us on the journey to financial freedom, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Don't stay on the ground. Reach escape velocity. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.